Hello, everyone. I'm David Savage. This is Lynn O'Connor, and our talk today is on a bear attack, what to do to reduce the harm. Lynn O'Connor shares her experience and advice. I'd like to introduce you or have Lynn introduce herself as one of our most beloved District 5080 governors and beloved Waterton-Glacier International Peace Park Association directors. And so now I've set you up as somebody that has a ton of respect and credibility throughout your career and today, Lynn. So could you tell our viewers a little more?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, David, for having this conversation. I think there's a lot of value to it. Um, for anybody who doesn't know, I was attacked by a bear. It was 9 days ago. And so as you can see, I'm healing pretty well. These are some scratch marks I've got on my shoulder. I've got some puncture wounds on my shoulder back here. She dug into there, she scraped across. I've got 18 staples in my head. You can see I got a little shiner coming on because I think when she did this swipe, there was a punch. One thing I can tell you is I have a lot of respect for the strength of bears. It was a total accident what happened. My dogs, in a way, it was an accident, and in a way, it was a lot of my fault. So I go hiking. I was on my personal property here, which I've been hiking on for about 20 years, a little more, a little less. Seen a lot of bears in my time here, and Fish and Wildlife did confirm that we have a lot of bears. Bear populations, black bear, I'm talking about, not grizzly. Black bear populations are on the rise around here, and I can attest to that because we do see a fair number of them. I was out hiking with my dogs. I have 3 dogs. I have 2 dogs and a neighbor's dog that always hikes with me. And I think the problem was that they chased a sow and her cub. And of course, I didn't know that when I first confronted the bear, but what happened was they chased something. I thought it was cows. It wasn't cows. All of a sudden, right in front of me, there was a bear on the trail. And I like to think about it a little bit from her perspective because all of a sudden there was a human on the trail in front of her. She was just doing what she does. She had a cub to defend. She didn't know at the time. Um, and she was running, came around a stand of brush, small brush, and I was right there in front of her. And we were no more than 2 meters from each other when the whole confrontation started. Um, and all of a sudden she went big. And this was interesting observation because she was trying to make herself big. I was trying to make myself big. And we were both like this, face to face on the trail. And she was swiping and huffing and gruffing. And I mean, that is honestly pretty terrifying to hear that close. And she kept coming at me. And I kept doing all the things that we read about, right? We read about make yourself bigger, make yourself human, make a lot of noise, back away slowly. I was doing those things, but she was coming at me so fast and our quarters were so close that it was only a couple of seconds before I realized that attack was imminent, that she actually was going to attack me. And so I dropped into a ball on the trail and she did. She was right on top of me as soon as I did that. But I think what happened there really was swipe, 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 and then my dogs were on her and chased her away because in just a second everything was silent except for the distance of growling bears and barking dogs. Um, and it was over. I stood up. I had to dig around in the soft dirt of the trail for my cell phone because I was about, I would say, probably 2 kilometers away from anybody's dwelling. It's on a family farm here, and there's a lot of us that live here. And I knew I had to call. There was so much blood. She got me across the head. I've got 18 staples in my head, which I hope come out tomorrow. But vascular wounds are incredibly they just bleed, and I was just gushing blood. I was drenched in blood. So I knew I had to call to get some help rather than walk the whole 2 kilometers back to somebody's house. And just imagine showing up at your brother-in-law's house. So I called. My husband didn't answer the phone. He was getting ready to go on a road bike ride. Phone was in the car. He was in the house. he had a nasty message when he finally got to his phone. Because I was like, answer your phone, I've been mauled by a bear. But I called my brother-in-law who lives right next door, and I asked Albert to come and get me, to drive up. I described where I was, and then I ran because I could hear her still, and I was afraid she would reemerge and come at me again. Um, but as soon as I stood up from the attack, I looked across and I saw her cub running after the group of bear and dogs. And I realized instantly that's all she was doing was defending herself. And that's why we were both like that. We were both in defense mode. Um, and, my sensitivity to wildlife, I felt instantly bad that I'd put her in that situation.
Yeah, just to fill in our viewers a little more, like this has been your life, whether it's park ranger, whether it's first aid, paramedic, search and rescue, like you are not a novice. You are very experienced in these areas, Lynn.
It is true. I was a ranger in Kings Canyon, which is big bear country and lots of bear conflict. And I've been hiking around here, seeing lots of bears, just like David mentioned. And that's wherein the problem lies, is I became quite complacent about my relationship to this landscape. Um, and hiking without bear spray, hiking alone a lot. And it's not the alone that's the issue, it's the alone that's the silence is the issue. You don't talk to anybody when you're walking alone, so you
Yeah,
can't warn the bear.
you're enjoying the ecosystem.
Exactly. And I love our landscape, and I love that I mean there's our property butts up against the Colville National Forest, which is huge, so there's lots of wildlife. I've seen wolves, I've seen lots of bears. We don't have grizzly bears, so we only have black bears. But that's the thing that my husband and I have both been talking about is, we've become too casual in our
Yeah,
relationship, and that's not the right thing to do. In order to keep our wildlife safe, we have to keep ourselves safe. Because if we get harmed by wildlife, wildlife is going to get harmed by us.
yeah. There is two really important points that you've just made. Number one, being a little bit too comfortable. So, for example, whenever I take a group or on my own in Waterton-Glacier or any wild backcountry situation, of course, I'll take all the precautions, the bear spray, the whistle, all of those things. But when I'm in the community forest near our home in Cranbrook, I don't. Well, that is foolish. And I think the other thing that I know that you care passionately about is reversing the, like, this isn't a fear, let's get rid of all the bears or let's get really close and hug the bears. This is, we are the predator. We are the threat to them. So we need to do better.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. We've all been reading the reports. We've all been reading, all the news about human encroachment on wildlife lands. Um, and that's exactly what's happening here is we're not an urban wildland interface, but there's a lot of that going on right now. The cities are expanding, and we talk about it mostly with expanding into fire zones, but we're also expanding into wildlife zones. And one thing I have noticed, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife did come out for 2 days and looked for bears, um, and did tell me there's a lot of bears, and it seems to me like populations are on the rise. And just listening to news reports and my own experiences here, I've seen 8 rattlesnakes this year. I've seen wolves on the property. The Fish and Wildlife said they actually asked my permission to stop hunting for her because there are so many bears here. They were afraid that they were just going to end up trapping bear after bear after
Yeah.
bear before they got my bear. And the first thing I told them, because they showed up on scene as soon as I was starting to be tended to, and I said, "Don't kill her. Please don't kill her. She was doing what she does. It was not aggression. It was defense."
Yeah.
And they did come out, and they did remove a bear. And they told me, they said, "You're going to read about it in the paper, so we just want to warn you ahead of time that we did shoot a bear. It matched your description, so we thought we got the right bear, but it was dawn, it was dark in the woods, and when we got to it, so my bear was a small, I don't think she was more than 3 feet, 40 inches at the shoulder, um, was a small black sow. And when they got to the bear that they shot, it was a large cinnamon boar. So somebody had to pay the price for my complacency. And that's the part I don't like. And even on my own property now, no matter where I go, I've got a goat bell attached to my walking stick. I'll probably never be without my walking stick again, because if I could have cracked her across the nose with it, I punched, and I still got some scabs on my hand because of where I punched her 3 times in the nose, thinking that if I could just stun her a little bit and stop the attack, then all would be well. But if I'd had my walking stick, that might have been much more effective. Now it's got a bell on it. It will always have a bell on it. I don't
Right.
care if anybody hiking with me thinks it's obnoxious. Going through this experience, and I was telling David before this interview started that I'm realizing that the trauma itself is an injury that I need to heal from. I'm starting, the emotions really are just starting to emerge. Of course they did when I was injured. It's like crying, hurt, 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 all that stuff. Um, but then all week I've been talking about it as if I've been the luckiest woman on the planet, and I still agree that that's true. But I also recognize that there's a lot more healing I've got to do. It's not
Well,
just flesh wounds.
and Lynn, like your whole life changed in seconds.
I did.
Your whole memory, your perspective on safety, on
Mhm.
protecting wildlife, etc. Now you're a international spokeswoman for it, and at the same time, within seconds, you reacted so quickly and so effectively. So what?
And that's why the bear spray would have been effective. If I had bear spray with me, which I didn't, which I will from now on, always, because no matter where I hike, like David said, even in our own backyards, we all live in this beautiful territory that's got this wildlife interface. I will always have my bear spray. I'm going to practice on inert cans, so I don't spray myself. Um, but when you're in that situation, you may find yourself freezing and not able to do that. But if you don't freeze, if you're able to react with a brain, that says, I need to do these things, then I probably could have popped that safety thing off the bear spray and used it. But one thing I have learned since was don't spray the bear in the face, because what you're doing now is you're spraying up where the wind could blow it onto your own face.
Yes.
And the last thing you want to do is be incapacitated in this situation. So they say spray it on the ground. That'll create a cloud in front of the bear's face,
It's
and it might
it's
protect you.
it's stunning that every time I take anybody new into the backwoods, I give them a bear spray lesson, and there's people that have hiked for decades with bear spray and never figured that out. And oftentimes people will shoot the bear spray over the bear's head. So now you're both in trouble.
Now you're both in trouble. And a fine example of that is that when I was hiking in Waterton Lakes National Park at the annual meeting last year, the hotel operator, because I'm from the US, so I can't carry it across the border. The hotel operator says, we have tons of bear spray. Here, take one. And
Yeah.
I took it, and guess where I put it? I put it in my pack.
Yeah. Wrong. Yeah.
Granted, I put it in one of the pockets, where you typically put a water bottle or something that you have easy
Yes.
access. But think about it, where you have the presence of mind to reach back there, look at it, pull it out, pull the safety, all that stuff. So you've really got to be better prepared. And if you go hiking with somebody like David in the backcountry and he gives you a bear spray, please, please, please take it seriously.
So Lynn, I'm going to have to stop recording because Zoom tells me I only have seconds left, but we'll come back for part two. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.